So look, I'm really excited to be with you this morning. Here we are about 3 weeks into all the things that we've been doing, and this is our third full week that we'll be having in regards to the virus and Zooming and the stay-at-home orders, or depending on where you are, whether you're in California or Utah, and every little situation is a little bit different. But today, in a meditation, I had the opportunity. I'm still down in our St. George home. We're coming back today to Salt Lake City, but I had the opportunity this morning to watch the sunrise. And as the sun was rising, I have to tell you that I took 2 pages of notes, and there's no way on this earth that we're going to get through all of these things. I know that. But I wrote down just a few things that, through a little bit of meditation, a little heart to heart, as I continue to encourage you to do, to get your mind connected to your heart so that you can work, you can act, you can be, you can move your life connected. Because the problem that often happens is I see people completely disconnected from their mind and their heart. And that is a great tragedy, not only when there's lots of challenges that are going on, like we have such an abnormal life today, although it's somewhat becoming the norm. The reality is, for each one of us, is that we recognize that some of us have some habits of disconnecting. And as we disconnect our mind and our heart, then the reality is that our actions become very, very different. So I want to read some of these things. Some of them I think that you'll write down, and then we're gonna talk about some skill sets that are necessary. And I'm still reflecting about 3 weeks ago on the one question that I wrote down today. And that is this. And if you can, I'd encourage you to write this one down. So write this down. Will I come back stronger after all of this is done, or weaker? Question mark, right? Will I come back stronger or weaker after all of this is done? Now, that's an interesting question at every level. Now, that question was asked by a sports psychologist to my own son. And as I sat there and I listened to him, I thought, man, what a profound question. And I know that I have shared that with many of you already, but I think it's a really important one, that as we go and we experience what's going on, can we come back stronger? And I know that you can. I know that you can. So one of the things I just want to note here is that I am so impressed by all the different things that so many people are doing, the successes that they're having, the deals that they're still continuing to put together, the way in which some of you are using technology. I mean, I have to tell you, I never thought that I would see such an older crowd being able to use such great technology. I'm looking at all the screenshots that I see of family members and elderly and people who are using Zoom or FaceTime and are really coming to grips with really the way in which the world is today and using those technologies. But I want to remind you that, look, what we're seeing with Zoom and other technologies is this. What we're seeing is an efficiency to being able to talk to people, to communicate with people. And I've always believed that whether you get an internet lead, whether you get a Zoom call, however it is that you're using technology, it's there for one thing, and that is to increase our efficiency in regards to working in this business for communication. It's a communication efficiency process. If you can elevate your communication and your efficiencies within communication by using technology, man, I know that many of you already are going to tell me that there's a lot of things in this technology that you're going to use that's really going to be cool. So I encourage you to continue to use some of those technologies, not push away from them, but embrace them and take them on. The second thing I wrote down was this, is that I have observed in so many of you an example of what is possible. My observation is that there's even more within you. And I just want to say these simple words, that I believe in you. Now, I've talked about this many times when I sat across a conference room table, and I sat in the offices of one of my dear friends and mentors, Robert Fillmore. And some of you may not even know what he is. That's nearly 20 years ago that I sat at a table, and I will never forget the words when I told him about all of my challenges. I told him about how money was so short. I had a spreadsheet that showed all of my debts. It showed all of my challenges. It showed all of my woes. And I remember him sitting there with a pair of readers just like this. And he sat there and would look at me as he would look at things, and he was really a little bit in shock. Because we're in a business, right, where we make things look like everything's great, right? It's like the duck on the water that's just working crazy underneath the water. It's a storm of current and craziness under the water, but on top of the water, that duck looks just calm. Well, look, I had figured out how to look a little calm when all the chaos was going on. And so me coming to him was a real surprise. But I remember him taking off his glasses, he set them on the table, and he leaned back and he said these words to me. And he said, I want you to listen to me. And I think this is really relevant at this time, guys. So listen closely. He said these words. He said, George, I believe in you. And I remember that he repeated it 3 or 4 times. And he just said, I believe in you. And as my eyes filled with tears, because the difficulty of the moment was there, right in my face, he just kept repeating that he believed in me. Now, again, me saying I believe in you, or him saying that he believed in me, wasn't the fact that he went and did all the work that's necessary to either become successful, to solve the problems, but just knowing that someone believed in me meant all the world. It meant the world to me. And it made a huge difference to me. In that same meeting, he said these words, and they are words that have stuck with me. I've modified them a little bit, but he said these words, and I think they are, again, so relevant. And I hope this is another thing that you'll write down. He said these words. He said, George, your current circumstances, so here's the statement, your current circumstances, I wrote this down this morning, your current circumstances do not equal your future. Guys, that is a really important thing here, that we're now 3, maybe even 4 weeks for some of us into this COVID-19 thing, right? I mean, it has really, really changed the way we do things. So sometimes we get our minds wrapped around this idea that our current circumstances equal our future. Look, I get the fact that if we're struggling and we're challenged right now, and we'd have to take a step back and really reflect on the fact of our realities. And yes, I want you to review your finances. Yes, I want you to review your health. Yes, I want you to review the relationships of your life. We're not going to get into that, but I just want to make sure that you recognize that your current circumstances don't equal your future. And if you start going down the path of believing that they do, the real challenge is that if they're not really good circumstances, that's a problem. Now, I've modified when he said your current circumstances don't equal your future, and I was very emotional. I was wiping some tears because it was a tough time. And then I remember as time went on, I started to realize that also this, write this down or put a little word next to this. Also this, my past does not equal my future. Sometimes we are so ruthless on ourselves. Sometimes we are so tough on ourselves. Sometimes we are so aggressive with ourselves. And I just want to make sure you recognize that your past and your current circumstances don't equal your future. And I know many of you have heard that from me, but it's a reminder. And I want you to know that if you can't see it, but this very first part of this writing, now I want to share this last thing with you in relationship to this principle. And I think it's very, very, again, relevant, man. The stuff I'm talking about is relevant today. So if our past doesn't equal our future, if our current circumstances, if they are not what we want them to be, do not equal our future. Remember, this is about mastering the story. We master our life. Well, if that's the case, and as I'm talking about how tough we can be, the very first thing I wrote down today as I was walking across the street, I had this notepad in my hand as I was walking down the street, and I wrote this: treat everyone you meet as if they are going through the most difficult times of their life, and you will be right most of the time. Now, I know you've heard that from me, guys, and it may not have had any relevance to you then. And maybe even when I said that your current circumstances don't equal your future, didn't really matter then either. And maybe when I said your past doesn't equal your future, it didn't matter then. But look, the reason I share these things, and I've been so vigilant about doing that, is because I know the journey that we're on, and we're all on a tough journey right now. So you've got to make sure you recognize that, look, as you see people getting angry, fearful, stressed, and this applies to yourself, treat yourself. I mean, look, there's not one of us, there is not one of us that have gone through these circumstances ever in the history of the world. So if this is the case, if this might just be the new norm, then I'm going to encourage you to treat yourself as if you're going through the most difficult moments of your life and you're going to be right. So look, I'm not suggesting I don't want you to push hard, and I'm not suggesting I don't want you to drive your life towards an outcome or a summit and put a flag in the hill. You know me well enough. Anyone who's listening knows me well. I want you to have that. I want you to have that. I want you to achieve your goals, your dreams, and your most sacred desires. But I also know that the process and the journey of sometimes going through that is that you've got to recognize where you are and recognize that your circumstances today do not equal your future. The past doesn't equal your future. And remember, treat everybody you meet as if they're going through the most difficult moments of their lives, and you're going to be right most of the time. You're probably going to be right. So do yourself the favor. Do that for yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be gentle with yourself. That doesn't mean don't demand great things of yourself. It just simply means be very, very kind, but also be very, very assertive. Be very, very aggressive. Be tenacious. Be bold. Be on it. Get after it. I know that you can. Right? So we're going to talk about what that really means to get after it. But I want to just point out just a few more things I've written down here. Last week, I spoke to you about coaching. And if I was coaching you, I would ask you these 4 or 5 things. And I first started off with saying, number 1, know what you want and why. So if you weren't part of that coaching, if I was coaching you personally, I would want to know, what do you want? What do you really want? And then I want to know why you want it. What's important about the deals? What's important about the money? What's important about your health? What's important about the relationships you want? Right? So number 1 is, what do you want and why? Number 2 is, what are you doing with your time? Guys, right now is a really important time to reflect on what you're doing with your time. And all great coaches are going to ask that, because what it shows, when you show what you're doing with your time, it shows whether you're on track or not. It shows where your focus is. It shows where you're heading. And remember, I've talked all this last week about what gives you the right focus, what can correct your focus, what can define your focus is the questions that you ask yourself. So get very serious about the questions that you're asking. Because if you're not asking great questions, it's unlikely that you have great focus. The questions are what direct the focus. Our complaining can direct our focus, but that's not great focus. Great focus is asking great questions. And if you get great focus, I promise you it's because you asked yourself a better question. So don't underestimate the magnitude of those questions. So number 1, what do you want and why? Number 2, what are you doing with your time? Number 3, what are your challenges? A few weeks ago, we had like a Matt Salter talking about, hey, I really review like what could be my challenges in preventing me from getting what I want. So what are the challenges? So if you want to course correct, self-correct, you have to ask yourself, really, what are the challenges? And then number 4, what are the solutions? And guys, you know the solutions. I promise you they're within you in almost every case. And even if the solution is you don't know the exact answer, you will be inspired to find the answer. And maybe it's just even back picking up a phone, sending a quick text, and finding and talking and speaking to the person who has the answer. Do not underestimate the magnitude of who you are. You are bright, you are light, you are intelligent, you are smart, you are brilliant, and you have the capacity to figure things out. So I'm going to really challenge you today and this week in relationship to really self-correct, course correct, right? A plane taking off from LAX to New York or JFK has to course correct thousands of times on the journey. Otherwise, the winds, the altitude, and everything else will take it anywhere that the winds are blowing, but not you. You're going to self-correct because you're going to ask yourself better questions, and you're going to find out your challenges. You're going to find the solutions. You're going to figure out what you do with your time. You're going to always not lose sight of where you're going, why you want it, and then you get after it. So as you move through this week, one of the most important things I can suggest for you is, I wrote this down. Know where you are going. Know where you are going. If you don't know where you're going, it's going to be a hard time to get there. It's going to be a tough time. So look, I've written down so many fun things to talk about, and we'll talk about them throughout the rest of the week. But I wrote down here is that I have to be growing. I have to be growing. Now think about that. Why do you have to be growing? Because growth equals happiness. And if we want to truly experience great joy, we've got to make sure that we are truly, truly growing. And as we grow, extraordinary things can happen in our lives. More joy, more contribution, more service, more love, more giving. All of these are aspects and directors to our growth and show us whether we're growing or not. So today, this week, how will you grow? How will you grow today? Right? How are you going to grow within your marketplace? How are you going to grow within the things that you're doing? Look, every single one of us has the capacity to grow, but we have to make a conscious effort to grow. And how will you contribute this week? How are you going to give back? How are you going to serve? How are you going to bless lives? What will you do today, this week, tomorrow, now? What will you do? Maybe, like, think about this, guys. It's not major stuff that oftentimes has to happen. It's the minor stuff that turns into major stuff. It's the base hits that turns into home runs. What can you do today to serve? I want to give you a thought or two in regards to this. You could just send a simple thank you card. You could send a simple text. You could send a voicemail. If you really want to not even talk to the person, you could send a slide dial, or you could just call the number and you don't even have to talk to them. Guys, you could just simply pick up the phone. You could schedule a FaceTime or a Zoom meeting. You could do anything to just simply connect to people and to serve them. And the challenge that I would put to you is to express your gratitude. Express how grateful you are for them in your life. Guys, you know, one of the things that I'm seeing, I really appreciated John Syatt's story about his mother and his sister who had not spoken to each other for years. And I was thinking about how many of us have relationships that are really damaging ones that have a ton of contempt, have a ton of negativity, a ton of anger. Guys, look, you know when your soul, your heart is being pricked a little bit in the sense of when you know you're supposed to act. Maybe there's something in a relationship, a sibling, a friend, a loved one. Maybe there's a client that you need to repair the relationship with. Maybe you need to say these simple words: I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Maybe it's just simply you in your own heart forgiving someone who will never apologize to you. And that's even a greater act of love, right? The ability to just simply say, I forgive you, and that they've never and never will say they're sorry. That's more common than we might think, right? And the reason why I want you to think about these things is because, man, with everything that's going on right now, this is a time that each one of us can take time to heal, to become more, right? To become stronger, that our past doesn't equal our future, that contempt, anger, despise, frustration, stress, fear doesn't weave throughout our lives every day. Doesn't need to. No matter what's happening, it doesn't need to. So look, I don't know if anything I'm saying is making sense to anybody. I hope that it is. But I know that I meet people consistently that have great contempt towards people. I'm going to challenge you to forgive. It's the statement you've heard from before, and that is, it's like, anger or resentment is like you drinking poison and hoping the enemy dies. Nelson Mandela said that, right? He said, it's hoping that your enemy dies by you drinking poison. It's not going to work. Free yourself, liberate yourself, demand of yourself forgiveness, demand of yourself a kind heart, demand of yourself that that you may not even understand what they were trying to do, although they may have offended you, hurt you badly. Forgive. Don't let that radiate within you. And you may say, I don't understand. I'm not saying I do understand. Just know that I don't think I may even understand at all. But what I do understand is that when I am angry, when I am when I despise something, when I have contempt towards someone or something, it does not feed me well. So I know that. I can't speak to what you've gone through. I can't speak to your challenges, but I can speak that there's a liberation and a beauty to your soul, to your heart, to your mind as you forgive. Forgive everybody. Forgive your parents. Forgive everyone. Forgive yourself. Forgive your siblings. Forgive your friends. Forgive your business associates. Forgive people who have, screwed you over, who have taken from you, taken things they shouldn't from you, economic things from you, physical things from you, spiritual things from you, relationship things from you, even your own innocence and your freedom and your forgive. Just challenging you to forgive. Do not let that canker your life. Big deal. And I talk about this in the 5 principles of true friendship and leadership: gratitude, loyalty, integrity, forgiveness, vulnerability. Big one to forgive. Not easy, brutal, ruthless, tough. And sometimes it will show its head again once you forgive. Forgive. Let go. Forgive. Declare your freedom. Liberate yourself with those moments of forgiveness. Guys, people often ask me what I speak about. I all day long can speak to you about how to close a sale. I can speak to you, and if you certainly went to the Everest sales system, the ESS stuff recently, you saw us role playing, you saw us working through presentations, you saw us working through objection handlers. I can do that all day long. That's not the tough thing here. The tough thing is to get right here and here. And as you get right there, you're going to know how to close. And the closes are as simple as, how do you feel about what I've shared with you? How do you feel about working together? How do you feel about taking care of some paperwork? Great, I'll send it over. That can happen on a Zoom call, a FaceTime, or whatever technology you're using. And I'm just challenging you that if you get right, everything else will be right. Remember, your current circumstances do not equal your future. Okay. I want to remind you as we're starting off this week with a couple of things that I've been very passionate about. And I wrote them down. I thought, boy, do I talk about these things again? And I think I do. I'm not going to go into great detail on them, so I hope that you're taking notes, and I hope that you'll write them down. And this is what I wrote down. I wrote down, master the story, master your life. Now, I said that earlier just a moment ago, but I want you to write down. If I master my story, I master my life. So what's the story? And remember, write this next to it, questions get me to focus on the right stuff. Questions get me to focus on the right stuff. So if I ask better questions, I'll share a better story. I ask better questions, it shares a better story. Master the life, master your story, master your life. But you master the story by the questions you ask. Don't underestimate that. Next thing I wrote down, new patterns equals a new life. A new pattern or new patterns equals a new life. So whether it's patterns, rituals, disciplines, patterns, rituals, disciplines, habits, any of these things can be that they impact you in a way that shapes your whole life. Look, I'm reevaluating every angle of that right now of my life. I'm reevaluating how I'm showing up in the day. I'm reevaluating how I am with my children, how I am with my family. Yesterday, how we even just ate dinner, where we made sure there were no phones at the table. Guys, I've never done that. You may say, George, you've never done that. We've always had our phones at the kitchen table. We've always had our phones at the dining room table. Now, we're not necessarily always looking at them, but sometimes we were. So we made an agreement yesterday. You might even say it was more of a dictatorship, but my kids will probably laugh about that. But I said no more phones. And that includes me because I'm just as guilty of it. And we made sure that the phones will not be at the kitchen table while we eat. Now, some of you may say, well, George, duh, that's obvious. No, it wasn't to me personally. So here's the beauty of right now. What new patterns will you put in place? What new disciplines will you put in place? What new rituals? Rituals are sacred. Now you use the word, sometimes we'll use the word routine, but man, routines are mundane and boring. What rituals will you put in place? What new habits will you put in place that will build and elevate the life that you want? What will you put in place to create the life that you want? That's all I'm challenging you with. As I've said, guys, when I do the 5 minutes of gratitudes, I say to myself, I can't ask you to do gratitudes and intentions without me doing them. I'm sitting down and writing down and doing them just while you're doing. I will never ask you to do something I'm not doing myself. That is my rule. That is my rule. I can't do it. I can't tell you to go do something that I'm not doing myself. So look, could it be as simple as just not having your cell phone at a kitchen table or dining room table? Maybe. I don't know what it is for you, but man, if you'll ask better questions to create a better outcome. So patterns, rituals, disciplines, habits, routines, if you want to use that word, but those are the things that shape our life. Don't underestimate the magnitude of those. And I know that I've talked about this stuff, but guys, the mother of memory is repetition. The reason these things come so quick to my mind is because I know how important they are. The thousands of coaching sessions I've had, the numerous journals that I've written in, the stack of journals I have in my even in my own safe at my home. Guys, I am just challenging you to make sure that you're going down the right path with the right outcome. Guys, it's the statement I made a few weeks ago or a week ago, where if you're climbing the ladder of success, just make sure that your ladder is up against the right building. If you're climbing the ladder of success, make sure your ladder is up against the right building. Love that statement of Stephen R. Covey, the late Stephen R. Covey, not his son. I wrote down this at the end of my meditation and frankly prayers. I'm going to tell you this. I cannot overstate the importance of meditation and prayer. Guys, you have got to do this. This is not an Eastern or Western philosophy. It's a philosophy that we know works. It's a philosophy that if you will get into a space of gratitude, if you'll get into a space of love, of hope, of a center, of a vision of the future, not living life, right? Driving down the road, looking in your rear view mirror. Look how small that little mirror is. And you know this, if you're driving down the road, looking in the rear view mirror, you are destined for a car crash. It would be, of course, because here in front of you have this huge window to go down and to see through and to go and drive through. Look, life is the same way. If you aren't looking through the big mirror, the way to visualize and see your future and shape your life the way you want it to be in every part of it. You know, I don't know. I'm not here to tell you which part you need to be working on right now, but I will tell you this. You better be working. Maybe it's a higher level of contribution and love and service to your fellow men. Maybe it's a way to, go help the elderly. Maybe, again, it's phone calls. Maybe it's a FaceTime. Maybe, again, just a way to connect and to serve. Guys, you have got to be that light. And if you don't take it serious, that your meditation, your visualization, not living in your past, but seeing a brighter and cleaner future, a future that is bright, a future that is hopeful, a future that is beautiful. You say, how is that possible? That's why I'm challenging you to meditate. Guys, if you know what, if you want a great meditation that I've got that I do almost every day, it's by Joe Dispenza. If you don't know who he is, he's a great, great guy in regards to the science behind meditation. It's 19 minutes long. There's one for the morning and night. Send me a quick text and I'll send it to you. 801-712-2626. I'll send you a screenshot of it. If you've got an Apple phone, great. It's in your iTunes. But guys, I'm telling you, it's great stuff. Deepak Chopra, wherever you want to come from, whether you want to come from the Eastern philosophies or the science of Dr. Joe Dispenza, either way, I'm telling you, it works. Okay, so meditation. Second thing I wrote down here, breath work. Guys, most of you who went to what we went to at Everest Sales System, the ESS, we all did breath work. Now, you don't need to do that long of breath work, but just like the little things that you all saw, like a Lindsay Wardle did when we were priming, right? And taking it in. Just the simple things of raising both hands. You say, well, what does that have to do? Look, you can go 3 weeks without food. 3 weeks. You can go 3 days without water. You can go 3 minutes at most without air. Breathing and meditating are a critical component to getting and finding your center. And guys, you have got to weave this life that you're living right now with a tremendous amount of gratitude, meditation, love. You may say, gosh, man, you keep talking about this. Come on. Don't you want to show me how to close the sale? I know you'll close. I know you will. Because I know that if you show up with the right tone, if you show up with the right energy, if you show up in life with the right message of love, hope, kindness, giving, helping, contributing, offering of your mind, your heart, and your physical ability to help someone, you're not going to have a problem closing, guys. That's never the problem. Never is, never will be. It never has been, nor will it be today. Yes, you need to talk to people. Yes, you need to visit with people. Okay? And that is the last thing I wrote down. I wrote down skill sets. Guys, as we move through this, I'm going to get deeper into some skill sets. We're going to talk about what are those sphere of influence, those database or those cold calls looking like as you're making those calls. Guys, I don't care whether you're in California or whether you're in Utah. People need to hear from you. They are desperate for your leadership. Let today be an amazing day for you. Let today be a day where you really step up, a day where you find your center, a day where you make a call and all you have to be offering is simply these words: how can I help you? That's it. That's all I want you to do, guys. I want you to call Just Listed, Just Sold. I want you to call your sphere. I want you to call your past clients. I want you to call your friends, your family, the ones you love, the people you care for, and for people you haven't even met, but you have a care and a concern for their well-being. And it is simple. How can I help you right now? Guys, for some of us, it might be just priming the pump, priming it, so that when this is mellowing down, when it's settling down, man, you will take off like a rocket ship. But there are people that, look, just the story, right? Unfortunately, there are people still separating, divorcing. There are people who are really at a challenge in life today. They have death, estate sales, they have homes paid off. They have to move. They have to get somewhere. It's still happening. It's still happening despite whether what's happening in Utah or California. And guys, it might even just get a little bit worse for all of us. It might, but not for you, because your current circumstances don't equal your future. Because you are going to treat you and everybody you meet as if they're going through the most difficult moments of their lives. And when you show up, it's all going to be okay. Because the leader who was supposed to show up showed up in the light, in the bright, and the brilliance of gratitude and love. That is what great leaders do. And I believe that about this group. I believe that about our company. I believe there are others out in our nation that are doing the similar things. They have figured out that they're not going to stay in their down and out state. They're not going to remain in a state of hopelessness. They're not going to remain angry. They're not going to stay hopeless. They're not going to be bargaining and pointing fingers and criticizing. They're not going to be in denial anymore. They're going to step forward and they're going to lead. And I just challenge you today to truly lead like you've never led before. As I know this is taxing. I know this is a grind at times. I know that it is difficult, but I can promise you that it will not feel that way if you will meditate, if you will pray, if you will connect your mind, your heart, your soul, and you will go and you will do the things that are necessary to win the game. For the rest of this week is going to be amazing for morning meetings. We've got numerous different interviews. We have got some incredible agents that are doing incredible things. And yet what I do know is that today is the day that you need to take care of you, and you need to get centered here, and you need to go act. Remember, your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotion, and your actions are the result of your life. Guys, in closing, know how much I love you. Know how much I love you. Know that. And know that I cannot stand seeing your suffering. I cannot stand seeing your difficulty. I cannot stand seeing the plight and the challenges that many of you have had. And yet in the same sentence, I also know that you are resilient, you are bright, and you are brilliant. And I know that you can persevere through anything. And I know that you can get through anything. You have proven in days past that you are capable of extraordinary things. Don't underestimate who you are. Do not underestimate what is possible. Do not underestimate that there are people who are so desperate to hear your voice, to hear your goodness, to hear your hope, to hear and feel of your light and your love. And with that, I can promise you that every close you ever wanted to have will work. Don't underestimate who you are and what you can do. And with that, let's do some affirmations. Guys, have an extraordinary week. Know what you want, know why. And let's go have a great, great week. Be solid, be strong, stay in the light. We'll be in contact with you all week. Let's stay united. Share your stories of success. Share your stories with each other. Lift up each other. Support one another. Give to one another. Build one another. And let's together do something great this week. All right? Here we